Today we're going to go over one of the most important skills you need to be a successful reader in this class, and it's called annotating. Now, to annotate means you're going to make notes in the text. It's pretty much that simple. You could change things, make comments, connections. We're going to go over exactly what it means in depth, but basically you're going to be putting something of your own thoughts and words on the text. So whether it's a magazine article, a periodical, sometimes we'll look at book passages, other times we'll be in poetry and music. Now, I tell people when you annotate, you need two tools at all times, a highlighter and a pen. That's because, you guessed it, you're going to be making highlights and you're going to be writing in your own comments, okay? So both these lovely tools. Ta-da! So as you work with your text, we're going to go through this document together. There's tons of ways that you can make notes in the side margins. We're going to talk about what exactly is important to highlight when you read through something. Now, if you have an article, let's work with magazine articles because that's what we're going to be focusing on most extensively in this course. First, you're going to have to tap into some background knowledge. When you read a title, you're going to have to think and predict what the article is actually about. Now, in the article we're going to look at together about schools in Fairfax County, you can see the title Fairfax. I kind of had no clue where that was at first, so I made a quick guess. I wrote the postal abbreviation for Virginia and a question mark, just wondering right off the bat, hey, is this talking about Virginia? And then that starts to let me know if they're talking about a school that has millions of extra dollars, is Virginia really a wealthy state for schools, or is there a wealthy area called Fairfax? I don't really know. So as we go through and we read an article, we're going to be documenting things with our pen, like if there's a word that I don't know, such as maybe there's a slang word, or there's a word that I know but it's used a little bit differently. I might want to highlight it, make note of it, write down the definition, especially if I have to look it up. I definitely want to write down the definition in the side margin so I know what it is. One of the best things that you could do is make connections. So let's say you're reading an article and it makes you think about the time when you were riding a bicycle when you were 6 and you fell down and you skinned your knee the first time off the training wheels. You might want to make a note of that. These connections are what's going to help us learn and bring back thoughts of what the text was actually talking about. You don't have to just make connections to your own life. You can make connections to other things that you've read. You can make connections to movies. You could say, that's like the time that Mel Gibson did this in Braveheart, ... Those are all great things. Really, the goal of annotating is to show me, the teacher, that you are actively thinking as you're reading. What it does for you is it actually engages your mind and it forces you to think deeper about what you're reading. You can't just skim through things. You're going to have to look at it comprehensively and pick every part of the text apart, which is great. Now, in this class, if you could connect to current events, that's an even bigger bonus. Some of you that are a little more artistic, I know I do this sometimes when they're talking about like a logic puzzle or something. It helps to draw things out, especially think of when you're in math class and they give you an example like, Jim is 5 years older than Susie, who's 10 years younger than Sal. Sometimes I need to draw out little stick figures to help me figure that out. And that's okay. You can make those notes in the margins. That's what annotating is all about. Now, if something comes to you and it's written in a rather tricky way, it's okay to write it out in terms that are easier to understand. So when you go back and look at this article a second time, you don't get stumbled on the hard words. It's already translated for you, and it's still in English, but in a way that's easier for you to understand, in a way that if you pass it off to a partner, they're going to be able to understand the article a little bit better at all. So maybe at the end of a paragraph or the end of all things, you have some type of new perspective. You read about something that you previously didn't know anything about, and boom, light bulbs click, and you have this great thought about the world and about life that this article brought about. Yeah, put that reflection. That's part of a great annotation. Emotional connections, how it makes you feel, what it makes you think. This is all great, exactly what I want to see on the sheet of paper. If you could explain historical context, we already went over your own life experiences. If you could make like, oh my gosh, this is like that time that Abraham Lincoln tried to open his own law firm and failed. Great, awesome, love it. It comes down to a lot of analysis or interpretation. You'll see in the next video, the 10% summary, analysis is key. And to analyze is as simple as answering the question, so what, or why does this matter? So if you get into an article and the author or the journalist describes something, maybe you want to have a moment of inflection and think to yourself, why is this important? Why did the author include this? And a great annotation would be to make a note explaining why you think that's there, or really why this is a main idea of the story, and that'll definitely help you out a lot later. Now, if there's literary techniques, you want to point out alliteration, which I definitely love. If you want to point out different forms of irony that are in there, or maybe some foreshadowing to what you think is going to happen in future current events or world events, that would be absolutely awesome. Notes all in the margins, and you could see the end result. An annotated piece has plenty of highlights, plenty of comments, connections, and thoughts written down. Now, usually as a guide, so no one's slacking off, I usually give a bare minimum of annotations, and it comes in the form of 2 numbers. I might write on the board 3-3. And so let's imagine we have a 1-page article. 3-3 means that you need 3 highlights and 3 comments bare minimum. That means if you don't have at least 3 and 3, you're just kind of slacking through this and you're not really trying too hard. By all means, yeah, you could have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What I don't want to see though, and we're going to have to work on this a lot, this is an in-person skill we're going to have to build, is a highlighter. Sometimes people go nuts and by the end of reading, a full page is covered in yellow. No. A good annotation works like this. You're picking out the main points with your highlighter. You're connecting all you can with your pen in the margins in any space that's open. But I should be able to block out all the text that has not been highlighted or commented on at the end. I should be able to just read that and it should still make sense. So we're looking at main ideas and we're looking at connections. All right, now sometimes you're going to want to go and highlight something and also comment on something. Hey, I'm not going to stop you. That's great. You want to be able to look back at this article and have it make sense to you. Connections to your life, connections to the world as you see it. Okay, and we'll talk about this in class and I'll help you out with some good suggestions early on.